I'm Becky Worley, sitting in for Leo Laporte, but don't worry. I'm joined by John C. Dvorak, Iyaz Akhtar, Lance Ulanoff, and Dan Patterson. We'll be talking about how Apple could buy T-Mobile with just one paycheck if they wanted to, why CISPA has John C. Dvorak really ticked off, and what's your Klouchebag score? Yeah, what is it?
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Audio bandwidth for This Week in Tech is provided by the new Win app for Android, featuring wireless sync and one-click iTunes import. Now with free daily music downloads and full-length CD listening parties. Download it for free at winamp.com/Android. Video bandwidth for TWiT is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
This is TWiT, This Week in Tech, episode 351, recorded April 29th, 2012. This Week in Tech is brought to you by Ford, featuring voice-activated Sync App Link. Now you can control select smartphone apps with your voice, helping keep your hands on the wheel and your eyes on the road. Learn more about the technologies Ford is bringing to its vehicles at ford.com/technology. And by FreshBooks, the easy online invoicing service for small businesses that saves time and gets you paid faster. Join over 3.5 million FreshBooks users and try the service free for 30 days of unlimited use at freshbooks.com. Make sure you tell them you heard about it on TWiT. And by Stamps.com. Start using your time more effectively with Stamps.com. Use Stamps.com to buy and print real U.S. postage the instant you need it right from your desk. To get my special offer, go to Stamps.com now, click on the radio microphone, and use the offer code TWiT.
It is time for This Week in Tech. I'm Becky Worley, sitting in for Leo Laporte, who is in Norway, I believe.
Yeah, that's what he says.
I am ABC News technology contributor at bworley on Twitter, and I'm joined by John C. Dvorak, thankfully.
Why? We work well together.
Well, you came in to rescue me, is my theory. Is
yeah,
that when
they said Becky's going to be doing the thing. I said, oh, poor woman. I said, I better get in there.
John C. Dvorak from channeldvorak.com, and also in studio with us, Iyaz Akhtar.
How's it going?
Co-host of, what would you call it, the Tech News Today? Tech News Today, or?
I call it Tech News Today.
Today.
Mm-hmm.
And tomorrow?
Yeah, usually. You can always get it tomorrow.
This is a guy who is a real legal mind. That's the way.
I was a legal mind, and that's been put aside.
Now he's an illegal mind, but he'll be helping us to delve into the exciting Oracle v. Google events of this week, which I think is quite possibly
that would be interesting.
Boring as hell. But
Did you go to the trial?
No, I didn't.
I've been wanting to go.
Via Skype, we have Lance Ulanoff from Mashable.com. Lance, thank you for giving us a portion of your Sunday evening. You got the pass for an hour, right?
That's right.
We get you for an hour.
If I could tell you the story behind this hour, that's a long story in and of itself.
Well, we're thankful that you can join us for at least portions of this. And while you're here, John C. Dvorak will be sure to abuse you.
What's this thing with this hour?
We only get him for an hour.
What?
An hour.
That's it. I don't know. Like he only got the pass for an hour. We don't know. It is the weekend. He's got some sort of social event. And so in case, we do have plenty of minds here. Also joined by Dan Patterson, formerly a colleague of mine at ABC News Radio and now at Co-Studio, Co-Point. Thank you for joining us, Dan. We like your security cam that you've got going there.
Yeah, right. You got to wait while we install the HD cameras in our own little studio here.
It'll just be fun to watch for people walking through the back of the shot. It's going to be exciting. I sense that already.
We are a startup, and we have plenty of people here.
Yeah. I used to be Leo's producer at
yeah,
TV.
a lot of people don't realize it, but you used to be Leo's producer at Tech TV.
Yes. And so I was racking my brain when Leo's new producer, Eileen, said to me, will you come host TWiT? And I'm thinking, I'm going to produce it. So I have a vehicle for us to get into this week.
Why would you want to produce and be the host?
No, just have an idea to keep it organized, keep it flowing, so people won't notice that Leo's not here.
Oh, they've noticed already.
They have. Or either that or they think that he came back from,
Actually, with an operation, he went to Holland. And here he is, ladies and gentlemen. This is Leo Laporte.
Yes, I'm blonde and I'm a chick. So it was sort of an earnings-orama this week. And while I'm not really interested in the earnings for the numbers, it's not like we're advising anyone on what stock to buy. I think you learn a lot because companies have to tell the truth. This is not marketing.
This is how you're going to start the show?
Yes.
Okay.
Wait, okay. You see the? Okay, so now the abuse is on me. Apple, huge numbers.
Did you see the front page of today's Sunday New York Times?
No.
Holy mackerel. They had this big story. There's a big blowout story about how Apple's not paying enough taxes. And this guy's going for a Pulitzer with this thing. But the thing that's weird about it, they took the entire front page and they ran a graph up the left-hand side. Unfortunately, you have to look at the paper to see this. And it took up the whole thing. It makes the paper look really thin and narrow. It's like a complete – I thought it was a design nightmare, a disaster.
So, well –
But the Times has given it to them.
Really?
They've turned on Apple.
They got a ton of money offshore, right? Don't they have a ton of their money offshore?
Well, the thing
every time they do their earnings, they talk about cash and they say like 79 billion of it is offshore.
Well, all I know is that this operation they set up is in Nevada, so they don't pay California taxes on all this. In other words, the $110 billion is being run through the investment operation in Nevada, and this is what's a big scandal. Now, somebody in the chat room just said it's not that big of a deal, and I'm kind of the same way. If I was Apple and I could hide all my money somehow without having to pay all these extra taxes, I think I have to do this for the shareholders.
Well, I mean, just when you think about the pure scope of the money that they're bringing in, they announced $39 billion in revenue this quarter. This is for quarter Q1, which is when traditionally hardware, consumer electronics,
they're way down.
Yeah, normally. This is 59% growth over same quarter last year. Here's the thing that blew me out of the water. $11.6 billion in profit. Google's total revenue, $10.7 billion. So they're profiting more than Google's total revenue.
Google has no real hardware to sell, right?
Well, and that's the thing is that when you're a service company, you're not going to be...
the phone.
Yeah.
Well, even if you had hardware,
selling a phone.
Well, I got a phone that says Google on it. Somebody's selling it.
A bunch of phones say, but that's a licensing thing. They're not making. I mean, it's not like Apple where they're selling. They are actually selling the hardware and making a profit off. the hardware.
No, this is true.
It's not the same.
But it was Google who sent me the phone.
Well, what I'm most curious about is when does public opinion start to shift on Apple? I think our warm and fuzzies are still like net positive with them right now, but at some point, Steve is going to be a memory, and only that, a memory. And at what point do numbers like this, and whether it's legal or ethical or some weird gray area, will start to matter less, and public opinion will really move in and shift the direction of the company? When does that happen? 18 months, 36 months, 5 years?
It's not about public opinion. I mean, it's about the product. It's always going to be. I think for Apple, somebody asked, when does Apple start to fall? They asked me that question, and I said when they start to deliver bad products. Thus far, they haven't done that. And I think one point, I think you're right that when the sort of Steve era truly ends, meaning that his influence over future products ends in, say, 18 months, then I think you have a bigger question, because it's going to be, what is the end product? What are they delivering? And is it still as good? Is it still as magical?
That's kind of what I'm driving at, though, that we can take the bubble of and the aura of Steve Jobs only so far. When do we start going, well, this product just stinks, and no amount of Steve magic can sway that?
Well, I think the other thing, there was a great story in Ad Age this week about Apple's first misstep post-Jobs may be exactly around this public opinion sentiment. It was the Samuel Jackson, Zooey Deschanel ads for Siri. Did you see these?
I saw it.
Where he's asking Siri, where do I find organic mushrooms? Where do I,
Samuel Jackson doesn't get enough work.
But don't you expect him to start yelling at some point at Siri? Just start screaming what does Marcellus Wallace look like, or any of this stuff? Because
there are snakes on my plane.
There's a great episode of South Park a couple years ago about smug and smug rising from Silicon Valley, and they used the Prius as their product example, that all the Prius owners, the smug was rising from the valley. Now, you can replace the Prius in that humorous South Park example with iPhone or whatever, and I think things like the Zooey Deschanel ad will just contribute to it. Though people go, oh, this is just too much cute, man.
And it does also go back to the money. I mean, the money is unbelievable. And I think this happened to Microsoft when they just got so huge.
And you can't ignore that unemployment is still near 9%. And when you have rich movie stars talking about organic mushrooms in an Apple ad, I mean, that could still, with earnings like this, it could spell bad things for them.
Yeah,
is Apple getting disconnected? Is Apple disconnected from real people in the real world? I think that's a fair question. But I really believe the reason that we started to see these Siri's ads is because something I started to wonder myself: had people forgotten about Siri? I wanted to write something called "Is Siri Lonely?" Because after the initial sort of excitement about Siri and all the games we were playing with her, I started to notice I didn't see people using it anymore, and people stopped talking about it, and there were fewer articles about it. So Apple needs to remind people, hey, we put this poor woman inside your phone. Don't forget about her.
Well, and if this was the one marketing ploy that they had for the 4S, I agree with you. It seems like Siri has kind of fallen off the radar. But then you look at the numbers for the phones, 35.1 million iPhones sold in Q1. The iPhone 4S is like an old man who's stumbling around waiting to be replaced by the iPhone 5 or the new iPhone or the next iPhone, and they're still selling an insane amount of phones. That's twice what they sold in Q1 2011.
Yeah, they're kicking ass.
And then the other thing that blew me out of the water was the China numbers. It used to be 2% of their overall revenue, now 20%.
Right. They just got on board with, I think it's China Telecom. They're not even on the #1 Chinese mobile carrier yet, and they're selling tons of phones because even I think the third largest has like millions and millions of subscribers. The thing about Apple's phone, which I think is surprising, every time we take a look at mobile carriers' numbers, their revenue numbers, they always go, oh, our numbers are up because we had the iPhone, and the data prices are up because AT&T had a good quarter for this. Verizon had a good quarter because they had a lot more money because people were willing to pay a lot more for data. And I think a lot of it is just to do with even though these ads are a bit disconnected, I think Apple's always been disconnected. They're not a focus group team thing. They're like, we're going to tell you what it looks like. This is what you're going to watch. This is what you're going to like.
Yeah, well, here's the problem is Steve always had a good second sense about these things. That's why he had those crazy ads with John Hodgman and the other guy. And all the ads they had before then. The Ellen Feiss, I think, is my all-time favorite, the girl who's had the dog eat the paper. Anyway, this idea is a complete violation. The one basic rule of marketing is you do not start marketing stuff that's not hot. So if something goes off, kind of falls off the table, you don't say, well, geez, if we just put some more money behind it, that might do well. You always take the money and you push it toward the thing that's selling well. And I think Siri, the decision to start to re-promote Siri, I think may be the chink in the armor we might start beginning to witness that will start to show up more and more where they're making mistakes. This is like a Microsoft ad. It's a complete waste of money. Yeah. Microsoft puts more money behind ads that don't work than any company ever.
No money to waste.
But there's a carrier partner. Isn't there a carrier partner on this commercial that it's not just Apple?
Oh, good. Two people get to lose out.
Yeah, I just thought that was because I wondered if it's getting pushed a little bit from there. I was going to ask, though, that I do wonder a little bit if the iPad new with the Retina display is a little bit of a problem for Apple in that the Retina display is the only new thing about it, really, that matters. And there isn't a lot to do with it.
Well,
and I just,
11.8 million iPads during the March quarter compared to 4.7 million a year ago. So,
well, they're going to sell. I mean, look, they put out something new. They're absolutely going to sell it. But the question I'm asking is, because I think the iPad still remains the best tablet on the market. But my question is this a fundamentally better tablet than the one before? Are they simply still filling the market that they have? And, maybe people are realizing this is just as good as the other one, but not particularly that different.
I think that presupposes a relativity in the purchasing that one of the things I read this week is that a rising number of people, their first Apple product is an iPad. It's not an iPhone. It's not an iPod. It's that the iPad is the device that they're bringing in to transition into a tablet mobile-based world. So I don't know. I think we make the presupposition that people are choosing between many iterations or between many different products. But really, a lot of people, this is their first foray. And if they're getting the iPad 3 as their first Apple product, they're loving it. They don't know that it's only a slight iterative, advancement from the iPad 2. Agree?
That's fair.
I guess. He went through a lot of work to get there.
And so, Professor Dvorak, do you believe that assertion gets me an A?
I think you should get an A+.
All right. I'm going to take that.
Well,
Apple,
what you said in a long roundabout way was that the market's not saturated, and these newbies that start filling we haven't seen what happens when the market gets saturated with these products. Then what will Apple do?
$1,100 a share.
It wouldn't surprise me if it got to that, actually.
Yeah, it's nuts.
But at this point, it's been nuts. I think it's going to be one of the greatest shorts in the history of the stock market. At some point.
You'd have to have a pair to go with that now.
Oh, yeah. You wouldn't have a pair for long.
The WWDC, the Worldwide Developers Conference, is June 11th at Moscone Center.
This is the Google one?
No, the Apple.
Oh, the Apple one.
Yeah. And they put the tickets on sale at 5:30 a.m. Pacific. Only 1,600 tickets. So
they were sold out, in 5 minutes?
2 hours.
Oh, it took that long.
So all the East Coasters will be coming over and all the West Coasters will be SOL?
Pretty much. They charge, $1,600 a ticket. They have this... you couldn't buy multiple tickets, I think, and they were canceling certain companies' orders because they were paid by one credit card. So people who are in that situation have to contact Apple to get their tickets back because they're not reissuing them unless you say something. So I don't know how people are going to get in the first place. I mean, but hopefully people will go in and be like, oh, wow, iOS and OS 10 will be there, and I don't know what else.
Why didn't they take over that? You could have probably made Moscone holds a lot of people. Mm-hmm. There's one auditorium down in the lower part that is, if you open up all the walls, because I've seen Oracle uses it, you could put in like 3,000-4,000. Why didn't they just bring in 5,000 people at that price and really go for it? What was the reason for having a cutoff when there's such a demand? Makes no sense to me.
Likes to do things.
Tickets.
And maybe
Apple likes to sort of control these situations. I mean, it wants to make it like this really special thing, and they succeed. They'll open up some more seats later. They'll do something special and keep the interest high and the hype high. This is it's their playbook.
A little bit more on the iPhone, just keeping with the Apple theme. Half of all Verizon smartphone activations in Q1 were iPhones. 78% of all smartphone activations on AT&T were iPhones. And Sprint posts an $863 million loss.
Oops. Poor guys.
Yeah. Sprint, going to make it? Not going to make it?
I think they'll make it. The way they're doing wholesale stuff with their network, instead of just going with... obviously, you want to get consumers, you want to get the actual people in to buy your phone each time, and they have the iPhone. They went ahead with that, and then moving to LTE. But the fact that they're wholesaling their network to other companies, and they run a lot of they figured out with WiMAX what are they going to do with that. They're letting their other subsidiaries use it. I think it's Boost and Virgin will be using the WiMAX thing while that's being phased out. So it's this kind of at least get some money out of the old technology you have sitting around. They seem to be at least aggressive enough that they're making moves. Because you watch T-Mobile and they're like, look, we changed our spokesmodel's dress and now she's wearing leather. So that's going to save the company. And they keep asking for the iPhone, but they can't get it because Apple won't put in that band in that phone. So, I mean... Sprint, I think, is at least trying. They're not like I think I'm probably on the death watch. It's T-Mobile. That's what I'm looking at.
Nokia shares just downgraded to junk basically after their earnings, and Samsung now #1 maker of phones.
Are you working on your portfolio? Is that the reason we're doing all these stock things?
Their debt.
It's like, how much money are they paying you at ABC?
No. I slap your hand. No, I just think I think earnings are cool because you get an insight into things that normally are sort of hidden or obfuscated or not clearly addressed.
Obfuscated.
And I'm a blonde. I get to use polysyllabic words every once in a while.
Polysyllabic.
Nice.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I think the fact that Samsung now has overtaken Nokia after 14 years, Nokia holding the reins as number one phone maker worldwide.
Let's just face reality. were hosed the minute they went with this Microsoft strategy, and it was a foregone conclusion. If Nokia goes down to $2 or $1.50 or something, it's not going to surprise me.
I think they were hosed a lot earlier.
Well, they were getting hosed, but they could have. I think they could have survived if they'd gone immediately with the Android, and at least.
I mean, that may be part of the problem, though, that they were hosed institutionally a long time ago. When iPhone was introduced, it was the death of Nokia because institutionally they were not prepared to adjust to a marketplace that did adjust incredibly fast. Well, Nokia wasn't ready for it, and they put out junk products that
the products are actually quite nice in terms of the hardware.
You're right about that. Some of their products are very nice. Some of their products are not very nice, and I think they were just institutionally not ready for a change. So no matter what, they were going to roll over and die.
Well, that's fine and dandy, but don't you think it's a little different than buying it's like having being on death's doorstep, but then buying a shotgun and shooting yourself.
I do agree with that. The Microsoft thing was exactly that.
I think that I was going to just say that with Nokia they were the leader in feature phones, and I think that position put them at risk because as the rise of the smartphones happened, they just didn't seem prepared to make the change, and they were doing far too well for too long, and I guess that's what made them sort of put them at greater risk than everyone else because they really were so baked into that market, and they're still selling. I mean, they're still selling these Symbian phones in other parts of the world, but what we're watching right now is Nokia attempting to rebuild, and I don't think it's found its bottom yet. Microsoft phones are taking off, Windows phones are taking off slowly, but it's a long race. If they can stick with it, I think they have the money. I think they have the time. I don't think it's a bad idea that they've really hitched their wagon to Windows phones. I think that it's a good platform. It's just a question of if they can accelerate and get back on track.
I think that's completely wrong.
I talked to Wozniak.
I think that Microsoft operating system is terrible.
Oh, I don't think so. I think you're wrong.
I talked to Wozniak.
Have you ever tried to move a file off of it? You got to take and download Zune software to do it. It's a Zune phone.
I don't look. So it's another ecosystem. There are parts of that ecosystem that I like quite a bit. I think that it does a good job. I mean, basically, you're signing in with you've got your your Windows Live or Hotmail account, whatever you want to use. The integration seems quite smooth. I don't spend a lot of time trying to move files off of it. I could use SkyDrive if I want to. I can put the file up there.
What phone do you use, Lance? What kind of phone? What do you use?
I had the HTC Focus, I think it is. Yeah. I think it's the Focus.
Yeah, is it running Windows?
I've also tried the other ones. What's that?
Is it running Windows?
The Windows phone? Yeah, these are. Yeah, I'm talking about Windows phones.
I'm saying is that HTC Focus that you use, is that a Windows? I mean, you're using the Windows phone on a day-to-day basis is what I'm asking.
I've used it. I'm not using it.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
I have used it. But I
have used it on a day-to-day basis.
And what was the number one most unusable thing?
You can't move files on and off the thing. It's extremely clunky. The hardware is quite nice. It feels great. It's a great phone. It can call and receive calls, but for the most part, it is not viable in this market compared to Android. Android just is so much better.
Off your phone. Why are you always trying to move files off your phone? I mean,
I take pictures. I take photos with my phone. Yeah. Who doesn't take photos with their phone? Do I have to go through Zune to move the photo off? Why don't I just plug the thing straight into the computer, look at it as a file, and move it off? Is that so hard?
Well, when I'm using my iPhone, I'm not trying to move files off of it. I'm sending them places. I'm posting them onto, to Twitter.
Yeah, great. I don't use an iPhone either.
All right. Well, there you go.
Dan, you and Gina Smith this week talked to Woz about the Windows Phone, right?
He loved it. He was also eating burgers over lunch.
And he didn't try to move a file off it, I'm sure.
Well, I think that's exactly it. And he did emphasize that it was the front end that he liked. And I asked him specifically if there was something deep in the phone. Him being a tinkerer, I figure he may want to really be in love with something deep within the phone. And he emphatically said, no, there is nothing deep within the phone that I find compelling, but he did love the interface, so give or take, I guess.
I mean,
you've heard my opinion.
I'm
stopped.
Right. I think we'd all like to know, like everyone to know, that John says you can't move files off the phone. right?
You can if you want to make it a Zune phone, load the Zune interface, which is horrible, by the way. If the Zune interface was cool, like better than Windows or whatever you're using, then I'd say, well, great, I think everything should go Zune. But it's not. It's a piece of – it's really an old-fashioned style of, like, let's take iTunes and copy it and find some way to make it worse.
They just took the Arcos jukebox software and just put it right on there, didn't they?
Exactly.
That's where Nokia could have made a difference. They had the ability to alter Windows Phone because they're the partner. They could have made other software so you don't have to do the Zune desktop. They could have done something to make their phone experience a lot different because right now it's all the same. Windows Phone, HTC, Samsung, Nokia. It's the same freaking experience.
Yes, let's do what we did with Android. Let's fork it. That's a great idea.
But they're the hardware partner. They're supposed to be able to have it working well, and they didn't do that.
I hear a lot of people like you, Lance, groaning about the forking of the Android phone. It's not really forking. Some of them just don't get upgraded. But it's guys like you that complain about it. I've had a couple different Android phones, and I don't care. I can still download all the free apps I want and do whatever I have to do. I don't find it to be horrible that not every Android phone is exactly the same as the other.
Yeah, I don't like all the different overlays. And I'm not a huge fan of the Android interface itself. I mean, I would say Ice Cream Sandwich, better, much better in a lot of ways. But
you're an iPhone user. It's pretty obvious.
I wonder if – do you remember a few years ago, Fred Wilson, in referring to Twitter and the whole the uprising or the new social media space that had arisen around Facebook and Twitter, he said, look, this space is here and the potholes have been filled. We're good. We're cool. And I kind of wonder if we're there with the new with the mobile space as well. Are the potholes filled? Are we all the room for innovation has occurred? We've had major innovation. Now it's time for minor refinements. And I wonder if that kind of speaks to John's point about, the interface can be beautiful, but it really matters what's under the hood.
Well, I think you're getting to the point where you're making a decision between ecosystems, not between hardware, not between operating systems. And this goes to John's point where when Microsoft can integrate this into something that's not called Zune, and is more SkyDrive oriented, I think then it's going to be a more elegant interface, and where
you like SkyDrive
and Becky.
I think that it has a value play. Certainly, people are looking at it as the best value option right now compared to all the other options for cloud storage. We'll get to that in a little bit, but I'm just saying when you look at a $99 smartphone and you're trying to pick something that's you know what I really think is going to be the bottom line? This is kind of a tangent, but it's when the data plans start to be tiered in the same way that the hardware is tiered right now. I actually don't think it's as much about ecosystems as it is about a consumer play, where the reason why the barrier to entry for people right now on smartphones is not hardware. It's not, operating system. It's that the data plans are too expensive. And until that changes, I don't think it matters. That's what I think is the big iterative process.
There's also some social issues involved here. You can bring out for example, and I've had this happen, the Windows Phone 7 into a crowd of people that are all, either iPhone users or mixed, and they laugh at it. Now, this is not the kind of phone you want to try to pick up girls with. Let's put it that way.
Well, you can't pick up girls with tiles.
Kind of plays to
Metro
selling, which is that this is about functionality, not necessarily specs. Right? That's the whole thing that they've been pushing for years. Is that this is about how this performs, and not necessarily what if we can put on a chart and graph out of this. And when it comes down to performance, part of performance is like, can I afford this? Can I afford to buy in?
And I'm going to use that as a segue into the next story, which is Amazon and the Kindle Fire taking number 2 spot in tablets. 56% of all Android-based tablets are Kindle Fires. The Tab, 15%. Of Android tablets. I'm pretty amazed at the speed at which the Kindle Fire has taken off, and I think it's purely a price play.
I don't know if it's just a price play.
And distribution.
Yeah.
They have
Do you notice, by the way, it's a ComScore report, and ComScore left out, they didn't actually even consider it, which I find very interesting, the Barnes & Noble Nook tablet. They consider that a reader, even though it is fundamentally the same. It even runs the same version of Android as the Kindle Fire and has the nearest thing to sort of ecosystem that Amazon's has. There are some caveats there, but they didn't even look. So I kind of look sideways at these numbers.
I agree with Lance on this one.
Often doesn't get it right.
Well, and the other stat that came out around this is that the 7-inch tablets have much less media consumption than the 10-inch tablets. And I think it's hard to know chicken and egg on this. Is that because the tablet's smaller, the screen is smaller, therefore people don't enjoy consuming media as much? Or if you get a smaller tablet, fundamentally you're just using it as a reader, which is smaller consumption anyways of media.
I think the study for that number was actually looking at browser pages, how many times you look through a page. And I know with the 7-inch readers, at least something like a Kindle, the resolution isn't high enough, so you still have to like pinch and zoom. You might as well be using a phone at that point. But the 10-inch tablets, at least you can see it all in one pass, and you can maybe that'll make you click.
Do you have a 7-inch Kindle?
I've used a 7-inch Kindle.
Have you used one of the newer ones? Most people don't have any problem reading on those things.
Well,
at all.
I mean, for the web pages,
not at all.
For web pages.
Right,
but for a book. Reading.
For book reading, it's great. But the study was looking at for media consumption.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
The browser part, and that's where it falls apart. But everywhere
both of those. Those are Android 2.3 devices, and when I tested both of them, I found with Kindle Fire that a lot of the interface stuff and web pages by default almost ended up too small and unreadable. So you don't have a great resolution. Everything's kind of small, and you have to, as Iyaz says, sort of it's pinch and zoom stuff, which is really not what you want. If you use your iPad, obviously you're just looking at web pages. You're rarely doing that. Everything's kind of sized right.
I'm in total agreement for normal pad use. In fact, using the Kindle, the newer ones with the connectivity, you can go to a web page and get emergency email for free for the rest of your life if you have the right Kindle. But it's pretty crappy as an experience.
And I mean, just going back to this on Amazon, they are crushing it in their earnings, but not so much because of Kindles. I mean, they're just subsidized dramatically. It's really just digital consumption is up for them, so they are fundamentally.
You think you're going along with them?
Do you remember? This is a long time ago, and I remember we used to have that show on Tech TV called Money Machine.
Oh, vaguely.
And the hosts had
wasn't that Carmine's show?
Yeah, and that gal, I can't remember. She had hair like a lampshade, but I can't remember her name.
It was Mrs. Newt Gingrich. No, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of someone else.
But I remember you'd said that they disclosed that they'd lost a ton of money after the tech bubble broke, and you had said they should never be on television again. And this was back in after the bubble broke.
I don't recall saying that, but okay. I probably said it.
At that point, I decided if I was going to attempt to be on television, I wasn't going to make my name on financials and investing. So no, John.
No, you're always okay. Although I have to say, Amazon is amazing.
One more company, though, whose earnings I think are fascinating. Nintendo. Tanking. It's their first. Well, I mean, that's a little bit aggressive. What is relatively interesting is they're posting their first loss since they went public. They were expected to sell more than 15 million Wiis. They sold less than 10 million. 3DS sales, not good. Anybody have high hopes for Wii U? Think they're going to pull it out because they're going to be the only ones with a new console at holiday 2012?
I do. I have nothing but the most confidence. Of all the companies I know, I think Nintendo's the one that comes out of this. They've done this before. Do you remember when they first came out with the PS3 or the PS2 or whatever it was? Mm-hmm. When it was in HD, and then Microsoft had one of their products. The Wii is a loser. It was going to be just in the tank. It was never going to know who was going to buy it. The company was out of business. And that was in '99. And so here they are again, same 10-year cycle. They're got some problems. I predict that Nintendo will come out of this fine. Mainly because of it happened and happened and happened.
Well, they're slow. I mean, how long did they ride on the Wii crest? I mean, they should have come out with an HD version. They did not. They got their butts handed to them by Microsoft and the Kinect, and so did Sony. I mean, Sony said, "Yeah, we'll still do the handheld." Sony shouldn't
be talked about in the same sentence.
But basically, I don't know that Wii U is going. Wii U is a tablet sort of interface and an augmented reality experience for the Wii, but it doesn't fundamentally change the Wii. So
it feels gimmicky. I agree with you, Lance. I mean, I played with it at CES, and the only thing that was interesting was the golf game, where it has a simulated golf ball down low, and then you use the Wii controller and you hit the ball off the simulator. And don't call it a tablet. Whatever you do, don't call it a tablet. But I just don't think it's going to be innovative enough to move the needle for Nintendo alone, unless they have something really big up their sleeve. I just don't get it.
I'm not saying that you guys are wrong in any way. I'm just saying that I have faith that Nintendo can pull the rabbit out of the hat.
Like when
they're going to have to find a rabbit.
Yeah.
I don't want to live in a world without Nintendo.
Of course not.
One of the big reasons
really, it's such an iconic brand. I mean, surely this is a company that can figure out how to reinvent themselves. They've done it 3 times before. They'll figure it out again. They may ditch Wii U. They'll go small and mobile and forget the 3D. But Nintendo will figure it out.
It sounds like the hopes of Tinkerbell. You know, let's all clap. And
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Lance. Very good observation. You got us. You killed us.
Their financial problem was they were selling lots of 3DSs at a loss. So it doesn't matter how many of these things you sell. Even if they did really well, that would hurt them. And the thing is, the Wii internally is the GameCube. So they're always making money on the hardware. So if they're making the Wii U and they're upping the resolution and they actually get inside of homes, they're making money on the hardware the way they're supposed to be. Their software sales is just crap nowadays. They need to move and realize, look, you cannot bank on a handheld portable gaming system alone, because that used to be the bread and butter. This is the thing that's going away. It's like the PDA of the MP3 player. This thing cannot survive. Even Sony put in, I think, 3G in their Vita. You have to have something else in the mobile space, and maybe that means putting out games for iOS, Android.
How about this? They do a deal with Apple, and the iOS becomes a massive joint venture with Nintendo, and you're playing the games on that thing. That's where the action is.
Well, that's a good idea.
But is there any margin? I mean, compared to what they're used to?
If you're working with Apple, there's always margin and plenty of it.
People are making money. People are making money. I think it's a fantastic idea, and obviously, the 3DS, again, another gimmick. 3D, you can see everything in 3D. I don't think people care that much about 3D.
Nobody does. I agree with that.
Yeah.
And it did not work. I saw during last holiday season they had stationed people at various retail outlets to accost you and show you the 3DS and how wonderful it is. I'm like, look, I've seen it. Go away. Stop standing so close to me.
Sure, that's what they were really up to, Lance.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they
go
also
on.
So, I mean, really, fundamentally, we play mobile games on our phones. What are parents handling their kids to play games on? The iPhones and the iPads. The era of the standalone, play games on a handheld only device, a game only device, they're done.
Yeah.
Absolutely done.
I agree. All right, we're going to take this opportunity. First of all, I just want to say we had Earnings-orama here for the first time on TWiT.
It is. Actually, Leo would never do that.
I know. Don't tell him. Nobody.
Believe me, I won't be telling anybody.
But he's going to make us some money right now. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about all things Google and sort of the intrigue, the excitement of the trial.
So wait a minute. So they're going to do a Leo cut in here, and they didn't trust you to read the ads?
Huh. She's got good hair, but the bitch can't sell.
I heard. Is that what he says?
Wow. I'm tweeting that out.
He may be seeing.
On that note, Uncle Leo.
Thank you, Becky, and we'll be back with a great panel and more great TWiT action coming up. It's a cage match coming up in just a little bit. But first, I wanted to tell you a little bit about Ford, and they make me do this because I'm the guy who drives a Ford and loves it. It's my 2010 Ford Mustang with Ford Sync, and you've heard me talk about this all the time. I mean, Sync, the whole idea of Sync is that you control the car with your voice, music, songs, destinations, even things like gas prices, movie times, horoscopes, all without taking your hands off the wheel or taking your eyes off the road. And that means you're connected, but you're connected safely. It really solves the driver distraction problem. That's a big problem and growing all the time. In fact, I can promise you when my kids get their cars, they're going to have Fords because I want them to keep their hands on the wheels. Actually, my son says, not 10 and 2, Dad. The new thing is 9 and 3 or 8 and 4. Kids today. Anyway, at least they'll have Ford Sync. So hands on the wheel, eyes on the road, and then you press the button on the steering wheel, or sometimes it's on the blinker, and the car basically says, what do you want? Now, here's a neat thing. They've got this new thing called AppLink that is an API for Ford Sync. You'll find it in most Ford 2012 and 2013 Ford vehicles. AppLink means that an app developer can write his app or her app to go with Sync, so be controlled by voice. See, when you get, in your car, you connect, all Ford Sync vehicles have a USB port. I like that. So you connect in your phone, Android, iPhone, Windows Phone, that way, or via Bluetooth. And now you can talk to the phone. Pandora is a good example. It supports Pandora. So you can say, play this station or that. You can say, thumbs up to that song, that kind of thing. They've also got NPR has an app now, so you can listen to breaking news and play your favorite NPR programs. iHeartRadio's Thumbplay service is supported. That means you can say, play KFI or whatever station you want. There's stations, hundreds of them all over the country, as well as the kind of the artist radio now, the Pandora-style artist radio. That means they even support things like thumbs up, thumbs down, skip to the next song. All of this without taking your hands off the wheel. You don't pick up your phone. You don't look down at the screen. You don't twiddle knobs. OpenBeak will read your tweets. Stitcher, Slacker Radio will let you listen to podcasts and radio shows. There's even a sync destinations. So if you didn't get the big screen in your car, and by the way, it's one way you can save money on sync. It's turn-by-turn directions by voice. You don't have to have that big GPS screen. Or if you've got a smartphone and sync destinations, you can use the maps and the turn-by-turn directions from the phone. I mean, this is really clever. If you're a developer, check out Ford's Sync's mobile application developer network for help from Ford on how to get your app work with Sync. There's lots more to come. If you're a driver, a user, go to your Ford dealer, please. Just say, I want to try out AppLink. I've got my smartphone, and they'll get you in the right car to test it out. They'll set it up for you. You can also go to the website, ford.com/technology, to learn more. But enough about that. Let's get back to the gang. A great twit going on. Becky Worley, take it away.
Thank you.
Hey, I have a question for Leo. Oh, never mind.
Yeah. I said I couldn't sell, but I do drive that Ford, and I do love the Sync.
What Ford do you have?
I have the 2012 Escape.
Huh.
It's my fourth Ford.
That's a big giant thing.
No. That's
That's
the soccer mom one.
Okay.
Did you see the one that parks itself?
Yes, that's the one.
They have parking, self-parking on even the Focus.
I like that.
Mm-hmm. It was week 2 in Google versus Oracle, Oracle versus Google, if you've been under a rock for week 1. Basically, the deal here is Oracle suing Google, saying that Google should have taken out a license in order to include Java in the Android operating system. Week 1 was both Larrys on the stand testifying. I equate this whole thing to the BAFTA awards. You know what the BAFTAs are, John?
Yes, I do. The Bay Area, is it the Bay Area AFTRA? Is that Leisure Suit Larry? Is that a Games Awards? BAFTA?
No, I think the BAFTAs are the British the
British,
Emmys,
yeah,
which
British,
is to us Americans, we don't know anything about the films. We're just interested in what stars show up and what they wear.
Yeah.
And so that's my theory about this trial, is that week 1 was kind of boring. And week 2 has actually gotten interesting, though. It's shocking me. Not only do we have the Larrys weren't there this week, right?
They were not there this week.
But we had Andy Rubin there from
Eric
Google.
Schmidt was this week, I think, too.
Got it. And the big developments, Andy Rubin, despite the fact that he sent supposedly the smoking gun email saying, hey, we should get that license from the Java license from Sun, he said, nah, I didn't really think so. And then the interesting thing is...
It's a crazy, crazy story.
Is that the copyrights are a mess now. The actual process. So Iyaz, when they pulled up the files that supposedly showed what was copyrighted, what was on the discs.
Apparently, the records from the Copyright Office said that no disc was submitted. That's the first thing, which is a problem, because if you're trying to go ahead and copyright something, you got to submit something. Oracle says it has records, though. So the thing is, Google's trying to say, look, you want to say this is all copyrighted. You didn't submit anything. So how could you possibly do this? So, I mean, this...
that's a little specious, because you don't need to submit anything anymore for copyright.
Right. That's the thing. Like, I'm thinking there's a lot of ways to get around this. The headlines read like, oh, they're going to win on technicality because of this. It's like Oracle's probably got a lawyer smart enough to figure out, like, authentication and figure out, the documentation. It should be pretty easy to figure out. But I think the more fun stuff was, like, The Verge going into all of the everything that's in Discovery. So we found out a bunch of stuff with the Google phone 2006, subsidized plans for $10 that Google wanted to do with a mobile
Discovery is great. That's why these companies don't like to do these lawsuits, because Discovery just reveals all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah, and Judge also said in the beginning, like, look, unless it's the recipe for Coca-Cola, this stuff's going to be public. So whatever your plans were, whatever your little mudslinging is, we're going to show it publicly. Don't ask for it to be hidden. So the Google phone thing to me in 2006 was interesting. But then there was another phone where it looks like a Sony Ericsson phone was supposed to be the flagship Android phone.
The Xperia phone, right? Wasn't it supposed to look like that?
It looks like, apparently it would be would look like a PlayStation Go. That's the mock-ups you're seeing these days. And you'd slide up the screen, and there'd be a QWERTY keyboard that could slide up, and you'd have a gamepad. And then Google decided to go with the Nexus S instead. And so this could have been a huge break for Sony. Actually, if you think about Sony Ericsson, at that time they still existed. Sony bought out Ericsson, I think. Was that this year?
Yeah, late last year. Maybe.
Yeah, they bought out their partner. And so this could have been a total shift for Sony. I mean, who knows what they could have done with
well, you have to assume that whatever they do is wrong. So that's what they did.
But yeah, that's the other thing. And the 2006 Google Android phone looked a lot more like a BlackBerry. There's no touchscreen. There's no emphasis towards multi-touch gestures, any of that stuff. So a lot of people are screaming like, "Oh, they did steal from Apple." Well, maybe they did. But
it looks exactly like that Facebook HTC phone. Remember the white Facebook HTC phone?
Is that the Cha-Cha? Is that the Salsa? I can't remember these names anymore.
Just keep seeing the same concept images.
Yeah, that's
for every
a BlackBerry
phone,
there.
every
That's
hidden
for sure.
phone. There you go.
Yeah,
it's pretty.
It's a pretty clear indication that they saw the iPhone and went, "Uh-oh, we got to do something different."
Yeah, and so they didn't. They made a copy.
What do you make of the T-Mobile revelation? Basically, what they said is we want to subsidize the data plan and make $9.99 the data plan price.
That'd be great.
See, this proves my point, is that it would have really changed the way that people adopted smartphones.
Until some bean counter came in there and said, "Hey, buddy, you can't do that and expect to make a nickel." I mean, it does cost money to run data through that cell system, you know.
Well, looking at Apple's numbers, based on just their revenue from Q1, they could buy T-Mobile. The numbers that AT&T was throwing around to buy T-Mobile was like $32 billion.
Actually, I've been looking at they can buy almost anybody.
Yeah.
Name a company, they can buy them. It's almost
Becky, do you happen to know if our numbers, there are occasionally reports done by reputable institutions that count number of Americans or Westerners as online, like whether they have online population. Mm-hmm. Are mobile numbers counted into those figures? Do you know? Kind of to your point about maybe are we leaving certain people completely out? Like, what about the people who only have feature phones?
I was watching I was watching some congressional hearings over the weekend.
Good times.
And yeah, it's just a thrill. And they had some people from Nielsen on, and those numbers are counted.
Are they? They are?
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't want to be a jerk at all, but I mean, we can laugh about those quote unquote 6 people who only have feature phones. I think there are a lot of hard up people and a lot of economically marginalized people who still do have feature phones. There are a lot of people throughout this country who just don't need a smartphone. And I wonder, are we talking past them or around them or not to them? Should we include them in our discussions?
Well, what is it? 50% penetration on smartphones in the U.S. It's the second fastest adoption since radio of any technology, and I think that the only inhibitor is that data plan. I mean, I know
cost.
I mean, I know a lot of people who they have they have old sidekicks and stuff that they have actually lost some connectivity from T-Mobile because they don't want to pay the data plan. You're kind of hosed. If you don't want to pay the data plan, you're hosed. But this is my rant.
Let's back up on this rant. What, you hosed about what? Well, you can't be floating around a restaurant and do web surfing?
No, well, when you originally bought the phone.
Oh, you mean the functionality of the phone you believe has been hurt.
Yeah.
I think people, I would just say that I do think that people, based on some of the growth numbers you're talking about, that even people who you might think couldn't afford a smartphone are considering it a necessity. Whether or not that's the right call, I think they are, and they're finding a way to put that ahead of other needs. So the people who are buying phones, and by the way, when they look, they're seeing fewer and fewer feature phone choices, so they're kind of steered in that direction anyway. But I think that more people are simply saying, well, this is just something I have to have. It doesn't, one way or the other, this has got to happen.
So basically what you're saying is that people are just going to go straight from having a feature phone to having the Google glasses. That's just the natural. That's the natural jump, right? Because those will be out in a couple months.
Oh yeah, these are actually Google glasses. That's why they're so shiny.
So Sebastian Thrun, who is lead engineer on many things, he's the guy. I actually went on the. He drove me around in the Google car when I went in the self-driving car.
Now you're. I thought you were going in the camera car. That's what I want to go around in.
The Street View?
I want to see what kind of routing they take, just to see what it's like being in that thing. And what do they do? Do they stop and take pictures, or are they just constantly taking?
It's just going.
Yeah,
going.
going.
Yeah. But he took me in the self-driving car year and a half ago when I did that, and he's now working on the Google Glasses.
Have you asked him if you ever put a dog behind the wheel? Don't you think that'd be great?
You'd really scare people.
Yeah.
He went on Charlie Rose this week with the Google Glasses on, and he apparently had a pair that was not the flaky pair that Sergey was wearing at the fundraiser when Scoble saw him.
Mm-hmm.
And he starts taking pictures. See, watch this. He just touches the top there, and he takes a picture of Charlie Rose.
He looks like a Borg.
I know. He looks crazy. But then,
Jerusalem.
watch this. Look at his eyes. Look at him. He's like looking around.
Oh, yeah.
He's using the
weird.
gestures of his head to post the picture on Google+.
Guy's a chick magnet with those things on.
He looked like a crazy person, didn't he?
Yes.
Well, that's just because that's the first time you've seen that, right? Like people with
when everybody's wearing them, we won't
Bluetooth
be
headsets, they look like they actually made crazy people look legit, and they were talking to somebody.
They still do, by the way, make people look nuts.
Yeah, so that looks, you're staring at a camera, you're like, okay, you're staring this way, you're like, okay, I'm going to click this way. That's going to way to do it. I would imagine people just get used to this, or they would have. I think the worst thing is when you take them off, you might still do the gestures.
I think we should go back to bullying, where a guy grabs the glasses, throws them on the ground, and stomps on them, like they used to do with glasses with kids.
What did they used to say, that eyes are the windows to the soul? I mean, when you start wearing these things, and you look at how his eyes focus somewhere in the middle distance or something, like he's talking to Charlie Rose. He's no longer looking at Charlie Rose. I would think that can be incredibly off-putting. So you're going to have people who you think even, they're walking towards you, and you think, oh, they're kind of looking at me. Oh, wait a minute. Are they? Oh, why is he about to walk into me? Because he's looking at his Google overlay world, and he's not actually paying attention to you. I'm fascinated by the technology. I think it's really brilliant stuff. I like the head gestures and all that, but I also think that maybe we're heading down a bit of a dark path.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that tens of thousands of years of human evolution and how we read people's faces and their expressions is going to suddenly be changed when we're like, oh, he must be wearing the Google Glasses, so I'm going to excuse that crazy behavior. It's like, no, he has Tourette's. I don't know.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't get a pair, John, is what you're saying.
No, I got into an argument with my son, who's a millennial, about this. He says, oh, no. I said, this is dumb. That's my typical thing. So he says, oh, no, these things, this is what you want. And then he goes into this long explanation about how useful it would be, because you could look people up while you're talking to them. You could be doing all kinds of crazy things. You can be checking out, you can be doing searches and all these things in the background while you're doing something else. And I'm thinking, really? And he is totally convinced that these are going to be the hottest thing ever for this group of anyone under about 27, I guess, or 30.
As a parent, I just am desperate to keep my kids single-focused, given how multitasking-oriented the world is right now. I just do not want their brain to be trained from a young age to be so scattered that they can't even focus and have a conversation with you without going and looking away and twitching and taking a picture and posting and doing all those things at once.
Remember when the mobile phones first came out, and it was rude to either leave the ringer on or use them in a restaurant? Mm-hmm. Now, whatever restaurant you're in, even if it's a pretty high-class place, with rare exceptions, it's considered okay to have the phone there. And
I don't think it's okay.
Oh, it happens. I see people on the phone constantly. They're always searching the internet. Oh, I know I'll get the answer to that. What was the name of that guy who? Oh, let me look it up for you.
Okay, well that's a social use. I mean, there are a few.
Well, the phone is a social instrument. I think this whole thing changes. In other words, what I'm trying to say is, don't expect what you're envisioning for your children to actually work out.
Oh my God, John! Do you see Dvorak and I are going to be doing a parenting show? It's going to be the next podcast. God help us. Google, more Google. This week, Google Drive, it's real. Google Docs will transfer over to being Google Drive. You can install Drive on a Mac, a PC. Drive, there's going to be an app for Android, an app for iOS coming soon. And let me see if I can break this down. 5 gigabytes free, 25 gigabytes are $2.50 a month, blah, blah, blah. A terabyte's $50 a month. And old plan subscribers are grandfathered in. Is this a big deal? Is this going to be the evolution of the ecosystem where people are going to say, okay, that's it, I'm all in. I'm not going to use Office anymore. I'm going to use it just like Dropbox, and it's going to integrate into Chrome OS.
Yeah, Google just said it's going to go into Chrome OS. I don't know if people are going to go into this one any more than they did with Dropbox or SkyDrive or any. Like at this point, like I'm just collecting these. Like I just have a bunch of these. Like I have Google Drive. I have this drive. I can separate my stuff out, but at least I have about like I don't know, like almost 50 gigabytes of stuff in storage, like on the cloud, because there's so many free services at this point.
Yeah, you take 5 here and 5 there. I want to suggest for someone who wants to code this. I know that there's actually it's a violation of some of the terms of service, but I think it's doable. And call me. I'll help you promote it. A piece of software code that finds all these free 5 gigabyte things and coordinates it as one virtual drive.
Oh, that's genius.
Excellent idea.
So you say, I got, now I have, like you said, you got 50 gigs. Why isn't that 150 gig, unit? See, at least your computer sees it as 150 gig drive, and you just deal with it that way. And use all these things. So every free one that comes out, you get all. And you can use our email box, too, what Google gives you.
That's what I was thinking.
Jailbreaking your cloud storage. I love it.
That's why with the client, at least, you can do a search on your own operating system. That's the only saving grace I have right now, because Dropbox and I have Google Drive and SkyDrive. So I have all 3 of them, but at least Finder can look for, Spotlight can, or I can use Windows for that. But until there's a web version of that, which would be great, like a web file manager that's like, yeah, I'm aware that you have files everywhere. That'd be really nice.
The chat room says they came up with this idea 4 weeks ago.
Oh, there's always somebody in the chat room that says that.
How many other
building into the APIs of Google Drive, that it could show, just like it shares a shared folder, it could additionally show and talk with a Dropbox folder, a Box.net folder. I don't think that would be too terrible.
Well, then they say they're going to have apps that are going to come out for Google Drive.
They already have apps for Drive. You can do like web editing.
Somebody will build an app.
Web video editing.
Right.
How many
years ago, I moved everything up into the cloud, into Dropbox. I used Jungle Disk with Amazon. I put Dropbox as my top level folder, and moved everything under that. And I paid the whatever, like $200 a year or whatever, for the tons of storage option. Now, obviously, I keep local copies and I keep backups of those local copies, but it actually works incredibly well. Particularly, I run a podcast network. I need to be able to share with other people media files, and setting that Dropbox, paying $200 and setting it as the top level folder has worked out incredibly well because of the things that it does that are very similar to Google Drive, and that it just syncs and I don't have to worry about it.
I think Jungle what?
Yes, that's what he uses.
I was curious why didn't Google just build this as an extension in Chrome as opposed to an actual install? I mean, how often does Google have, besides Chrome browser, something that you actually have to install on your computer? I mean, everything happens in the cloud with them. It's always extensions. So it just seems a little bit odd that they did it in this way, that they couldn't figure out a way to just say, okay, well, your Chrome browser is also your file folder container, exactly like it is, by the way, in the Chrome OS. So why would you need to actually install anything?
Well, I think that part of the answer to that question is on This Week in Google, Denise Howell was saying, if you're up in Redmond, you're asking, how come Google gets away with this level of coercing might be a strong word, but putting their product out in a format that forces you to embrace a lot of their product. Mm-hmm. And you're asking, how is that not anti-competitive when Microsoft was doing very similar things and got their hand slapped for it? So you've got an operating system, a browser, a document system, a storage system, a search engine, an email client. How is that not tying all these things together in a way that's anti-competitive?
Nobody's using the Chrome OS. No one's using Chrome OS as their operating system
yet.
I mean, right now, But how long has it been out, and what's the percentage of penetration? So, you have to actually own a significant chunk of the market, in any market, to be looked at or considered a monopoly, and they simply don't have that. They don't even have – I mean, Chrome as a browser is certainly moving up, although I wouldn't say they have, overwhelming market share. But the operating system, talk to anyone. I mean, no one's using it.
Yeah.
And Windows is still there.
Absolutely. Still there.
So in looking at this, is this something that's going to get people off of Microsoft Office? Is this going to change people's perspective in terms of Google Drive? Is it going to make Google Docs any more appealing?
Not to me.
I don't know. I mean, the weird thing is they rebranded Docs into Drive, and like I guess it's good you have offline versions of your documents now. But like this would be like if Office became SkyDrive, and that's not like it's kind of this weird combination of things because it's a creator of content and it's a storage area. So that's where people started freaking out with terms of service. Like, do you own this? Are you going to be able to copy this? What's going on there? Dropbox, on the other hand, is like, look, you own your stuff. We don't even care what kind of stuff you have. But you're not creating it in Dropbox. You're not creating it in Microsoft. But in Google, you are. You're creating it in Drive. You're creating your spreadsheets in there, and then you're syncing it. There's a weird it's a weird combination of things in this. It's making me slightly uncomfortable with this idea of why are my docs now with my Drive? Like, they don't have to be that way.
Do you think – I was going to say, do you think that Google has a tremendous naming problem?
Yes.
So they just finally decided to call folders folders. They were collections. Now they're folders. They're trying to call their creation platform Drive. They seem to be all over the map when it comes to in fact, I just don't think they're very good at it, naming products. And there's sometimes they'll name their operating system is the same name as their browser. Is this confusing to you? I'm sorry. Well, it's just how we like to do things. Google
by the way, I thought that was unbelievably dumb.
Yeah, it's created nothing but confusion.
Yeah.
Also creating confusion, and I think the hiccup is mostly over, were the terms of service that got people really up in arms. This was the line particularly. It's the same terms that were in Google Docs. But
it's their omnibus terms of service that people are bitching about.
This is the part that's creepy is when you upload or otherwise submit content to our services, you give Google a worldwide license to use, host, store, reproduce, modify, create derivative works, and then this is the part that gets really weird. Communicate, publish, publicly perform, publicly display, and distribute such content.
Yeah, we were talking about that on Tech News today. I mean, that's basically like every time you create a piece of content, you get a bunch of copyrights, and to write that just means, look, we should be able to do with this stuff what we can. Like if let's say we were sharing a document and you wanted to translate it to Spanish, that's a derivative work. And if they don't write that in the terms of service, they couldn't do anything. You'd be locked out, and you could, I guess, theoretically sue them for copyright infringement because they made a derivative work of, well, this spreadsheet, like maybe the lineup today, that kind of thing. So
publicly perform, though? What does that mean legally?
This is like some piece of boilerplate that got in there, and it just reminds me of the day years and years ago. I remember when Xerox was in the desktop publishing. They got into the desktop publishing business with a PageMaker kind of clone. I forgot the name of it. And I asked to see a copy, so I had to sign this crazy document that went on and on about liability for somebody getting injured by the product because apparently it was just boilerplate from a copying machine. They took copying machine the license and gave it to and put it on software as if this is going to kill somebody.
When you jumped up on top of the software box to get an image of your cheeks and you fell off on the way down?
Right. That would be one of the reasons they had to put that in there.
I blame the lawyers.
Well, it's just sloppy.
Onerous language, nothing clear, and they think they're doing their jobs by protecting their clients from all kinds of liability and giving them, it's the what if, so write it as if anything could happen and you're protected and you have the rights and abilities. I don't think that Google is intending to dive into people's personal information that they put up on Drive and then just put it out there to the world. But it's sloppy at best. I mean, the TOSs are full of sloppy and ridiculous and unenforceable information.
You either trust Google or you don't, right? I mean, bottom line, if they did that, it would be corporate suicide. So bottom line, you either trust him or you don't. Lance Ulanoff, we trust that you have to leave us.
What, are you
going
to roust him? We could have stuck around for a while.
Well, I don't want him to leave, but he said he had to go.
Well, you don't have to be the one that's forcing him out.
I'm the mom on this show.
Jeez.
You have to go do your homework, I think, Lance. So thank you very much for joining us. Lance Ulanoff, Mashable.com. He's a good man. He can handle the abuse of John C. Dvorak, and we appreciate your time on a Sunday. We are going to come back with more of This Week in Tech, including Walmart.com, the website, letting you pay with cash. a woman texting, falling into a hole. That's always good. And
that's a good one. Yeah.
I want to check your
great work, China.
Klouchebag score.
I don't do a Klouchebag.
We'll be right back. Leo?
Thank you, Becky Worley. We'll get back to more tech news in just a bit, but I wanted to tell you a little bit about the best thing that ever happened to me as a small business owner, FreshBooks.com. When I was young and naive and I was doing my own invoices, I didn't get paid a lot because I would forget or probably more likely put it off. And then you don't invoice, you don't get paid. Sometimes I'd wait 8 or 9 months. By that time, nobody wants to pay you. Then Amber MacArthur, it was Amber that told me about FreshBooks.com, and my world changed. FreshBooks is the easy online invoicing app for any small business. It'll save you time. It gets you paid faster. They'll even print out invoices. There are still some clients that want a paper invoice. No problem. For a small additional fee, they'll print it, stamp it, and mail it. But most of the time, what you want is the invoice online, the email invoice, because on it is a button that your clients can pay you with. They press the button, and they get, I think there's something like 11 different online payment services like PayPal, Authorize.net, and so forth. And so you actually get paid faster because it's easier for your client. You can even set up auto pay and auto bill if you want. If you do time and hours, a lot of us bill for the amount of time we spend on a project. They've got an iPhone app that'll actually time it and then import that data into the invoice. They also have a web-based app if that's easier for you. This is such a good service. I want you to try FreshBooks. I've been using them since they started in 2004, and now 3.5 million people have used FreshBooks for their invoices. Try it free for 30 days of unlimited use. Everything you need, everything you want to do, free for 30 days, as many clients as you want. They've got automated late payment reminders, so if you don't get paid right away, they'll handle that. It's just fantastic. FreshBooks.com, 30 days free. All I ask is if they ask you, where'd you hear about this? You just say, Becky Worley told me. Give Becky some credit, and TWiT. You can mention that too. FreshBooks.com. Look, you got to try this today. Speaking of the Becky, let's get Worleyized. Becky?
Yeah, let's get Worleyized. Worley told you about FreshBooks. But she did also tell you about tech news today. And Tom Merritt is going to give us a little preview on what's coming up this week in the tech news today.
Hey, thanks, Becky. Good to see you. Here's some of the things we'll be keeping an eye on in the week ahead on Tech News Today. Monday, April 30th, Google Wave finally ends access. It hasn't been editable in a while, but you'll have to get your stuff out before Monday. Tuesday, May 1st, BlackBerry 10 Jam kicks off. Also, Mortal Kombat hits the PlayStation Vita. Wednesday, May 2nd, Tumblr is supposed to launch ads, and Yelp announces earnings. And Thursday, May 3rd, Samsung launches the next Galaxy device. We find out what it's going to be called, and Tudor Brown steps down from ARM. All that and more on Tech News Today in the coming week. Back to you, Becky.
This is This Week in Tech. I'm Becky Worley, sitting in for Leo Laporte. Don't worry, he'll be back on Wednesday, but joined by John C. Dvorak from channeldvorak.com.
And don't forget the noagendashow.com. I have to plug that or I get grief.
Iyaz Akhtar from
Tech News Today.
And Dan Patterson is joining us from CoPoint. Thank you so much for being with us, Dan. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's do a little meat and potatoes right now. CISPA, the Cyber Intelligence Sharing and Protection Act. Iyaz sighs. There's nothing like policy that gets people excited.
Oh, yeah.
Let me see if I can do this some justice, okay? This has been passed in the House on Thursday, and basically it's intended to safeguard the United States against cyber threats. Summarizing as best I can, it allows technology companies who have information they feel is in the best interests of national security, if they want to share that information with the national government, with the National Security Director, they may. It's voluntary. Without the risk of being sued. Is that the closest to a short summary?
No.
Okay, let's hear it.
Well, I don't have a short summary because I don't think there is one.
I do, and I spoke with a colleague of mine who covers the House of Representatives. I cover the presidential campaign and occasionally the White House. He knows the House very well, and you can listen to all of this as a mini report that I did in the same show with Gina. Essentially, Becky, you did a pretty good job. I would add to that indemnification and clarity of routing of information in that it appears to be something that we need to understand what's happening with this bill and not hyperbolically freak out, because the biggest risk of CISPA is that little portions of this could slip in. It is intentionally designed to be dismantled, and that portions of it could slip into the legislation while we're all distracted with this campaign that's going to happen over the summer. What we need to watch for is indemnification and routing of information, meaning like who is responsible for what types of information and where did this come from? Where does this go? Because information can pop up like blips, be reported to certain places, and then disappear.
Okay,
does
so
that make any sense?
Yeah, and the big issue I think right now is that as it stands, if a technology company, and many of them are behind this bill, Facebook, the CTIA, I think 41 of the 120 companies that are represented by an industry technology group. Microsoft is apparently backing away from it. But if one of those companies shares information with the government about what they perceive as a threat, either to someone, a physical threat, child pornography, terrorism, national security, if they share that information and the government uses it incorrectly, the government can be sued. The company cannot. And my understanding from what the EFF is saying and some of the other organizations that are against it is that the companies should be liable if they incorrectly share information.
Yes, and that some actionable components of this can come down to individuals or departments within technology companies. So generally, when we look at things like accountability, we're worried about, oh, this group or this company, just like you said, Facebook or Google is responsible. But now an individual actor or a group of actors within a company can report something and step outside of typical protocol, and that would then default to the government to be responsible for, instead of, again, like Facebook or Google. And in this case, the biggest and most scary thing, well, not the biggest, but a big scary component of the bill is that the government has a ton of precedent and prior legislation that indemnifies them all over the place from being sued.
Right. The other part of this that freaks people out is one section that specifically says that companies may share information and use, I'm quoting now, cybersecurity systems to identify and obtain cyber threat information to protect the rights and property of a self-protected entity. And I think people are nervous that this could be misappropriated to protect intellectual property, protect file. This could be used in a how to share file information about file sharers. Iyaz, you had the really good point that in constitutional law, very few words are written and much is interpreted.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
That's the week. I was like, I don't understand.
I'm not figuring out whether you're trying to defend this piece of crap or what. Because this is like one of the most onerous things when you start looking in, especially the amendments that have been dropped in here. This is just another attempt to spy on the American public. It's just that simple. And if you look at the people that are against it, now you know why Microsoft's backing off, is you look at the people that are against it and read what they have to say, and I think that they pretty much summarize what the problem is. This is an onerous piece of legislation that should be fought against, and luckily the Republicans have pushed it so hard in the House of Representatives that the Democrats, just as a knee-jerk reaction, will probably reject it in the Senate. So I'm not that worried about it.
It will be rejected in the Senate, and POTUS, the White House, has vowed to veto this. A lot of that could change in the campaign year, and a ton of it, like you said, Becky, will come down to constitutional interpretation. How this particular Supreme Court chooses to interpret many of the properties of this law, not the entire thing, but again, properties of it.
And I want to get back to that, but one thing, two important distinctions. One, this will go to the Senate, not next week because they're on hiatus, but it looks like there's a different competing bill, the Lieberman bill, which basically the same smell but has some subtleties. And as far as the Oval Office, what I heard is that advisors are going to suggest that it's vetoed. It has not been clearly stated that it will be vetoed, but go back to what you were saying about the interpretation, Iyaz, because I think that's interesting.
Well, yeah. See, the thing is, a lot of people are complaining that there's a lack of definitions of this. There's some vague things about this, and there are real problems with this bill. That there's a lack of definitions. But when you get to somebody tried to add an amendment, they added in some clarity to what this covers, and then there was another vague term in there, like national security. Like, what does that mean? And if you can go ahead and you can write a law that's extraordinarily tight, let's say the tax code, I studied this, and there's regulations, 6 volumes of this stuff, that gets litigated as often as the Constitution does, and the Constitution is like one sheet. It's pretty simple. It's simple, right? All your rights are on there. There's really no perfect law that can be written anyway. So let's get that out of the way. But the thing is, this could be written better. It could be tighter, but you don't necessarily want this to go to a court, and then you have to have like this huge problem first, right? It gets passed, something goes wrong, it's got to get litigated up to the Supreme Court for interpretation to a certain point. If you write the law better in the first place, you don't have to get there, but you still will have interpretation for a very long time.
And John,
what is this supposed to do? What is this law supposed to accomplish that we need it at all?
I'm going to postulate what I think is the scenario, and tell me if I'm wrong. Okay, I'm Facebook. I somehow come across some information that's privately being exchanged that I think is an issue of national security or child porn.
You think?
I think. Okay. I escalated up the channels, and
so you're going to be like somebody in Cuba just turning in their neighbor. What about you not thinking about it, but you hate somebody, so you turn them in on that basis?
Oh, I'm not saying there aren't a gajillion ways this could be misused, but let's just say what's the use case. So I go to the bosses and I say, I think that we should share this with the NSA.
Right.
And they say...
Do you think priests should also do the same thing? I'm just wondering.
I'm Catholic. Don't get me started.
I'm just saying.
So at this point, this information has been decided by Facebook that they think it should be shared. Now there's a liability issue. Now they have to run it through the lawyers. The lawyers are going to tell them, unless this is a sure thing, horrible terrorist action going on, very obvious, clear-cut case, they're going to say, don't share this. We'll be in such liability. This is a huge, big deal. That information dies. It can only be accessed if they get a warrant. And how is the government going to know that they need to get a warrant to ask Facebook these questions? So I'm not saying it's right.
Well, let's
I'm just trying
take a
to
look
say
at what the possibility. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but what happens if Facebook decides to do something like you just described, and then over time, it turns out that in discovery and some other issue, a whole bunch of instances of similar things that took place that Facebook never took any action on. Right. You talk about putting yourself in a bind to get really sued. It's like, how come you called this guy out, but you didn't call this guy out? And how come? And here's a more onerous situation that you never even brought up. Are they now liable for some sort of violation of this law? Can they get really some bad action happening? I mean, this thing opens up a can of worms that it's frightening for any company. And to be backing it, which Facebook is, they're voluntarily saying this is great, which is mysterious
because
to me.
It relieves their liability on one front.
It may add more liability in all kinds of other ways in situations that they're unaware of. I think to even support such a thing, and why would somebody be able to do something and be legally all exonerated in advance? I think that's like a complete violation of the way the system works. If you do something, you should be responsible for your actions. So if you're like busting somebody, you can't go, too bad because this law protects me. I can say whatever I want. I'm not buying into that being a good thing in any way.
Playing devil's advocate, though, if somebody's liable, whether it's the government or the individual corporations, isn't that good enough?
No, if you're liable for something, it's because you did something wrong. I mean, if you're all of a sudden making accusations on people that you don't have got a clue, maybe they did something wrong, maybe they didn't. If you think they did something wrong, go up and stand up like a man and say, yeah, I think they did something wrong, Mr. Policeman. Not like, I think they may have done something wrong. Why don't you go look into it? And I'm off scot-free. You can't. That's not the way to do business in this country.
Since they're protected, they might overshare, right? They'll be like, oh, look, we don't know what we should be reporting. We're going to tell you everything. We can, because we can.
You think that's good?
No, that's a horrible thing. That's what I'm saying. Like, it lets them off, right? There's no liability. They're like, okay, we're a company. We can say as much as we want. And if you make a mistake with it, then it's on you, government.
I wonder if those are eligible for Freedom of Information Act searches eventually, and if that will be a sort of a limiter in terms of what's shared. But I mean, going back to your point, John, I see a parallel, just to advocate for the other side, is that it's like the Good Samaritan law. You may not be a doctor, but if you see somebody choking and you go and give them the Heimlich and break their rib,
that requires an active act. There's no active thing on this. So the companies don't have to do anything. They can,
but I don't have to give that guy the Heimlich.
Right, but Good Samaritan law would make you have to do it, right? That puts an actual.
No, the Good Samaritan law says that I am not liable for breaking his rib if I'm trying to help him.
Okay.
So if I'm the company
I've always
trying to do
wondered if you went
something
over
good-
to some like Good Samaritan situation, you start beating the crap out of him.
I'm giving you a
Well, there's no Good Samaritans involved in this deal.
It is messy. It's not as bad as some of the other ones that we've seen. It's not SOPA, but it's still it's a big mess.
Well, it's like I said, I don't really think it's going to get past the Senate anyway. So, but the thing is, they'll come up with another one, which is very similar, probably just as bad, and they'll call it something like anti-child porn law,
Right.
And they'll
Save the children.
or they'll just give it up and slip it into some military spending bill at the bottom and say this is here we got it anyway. There's something like this is going to happen. It's just that there's no reason for us to kind of roll over every time they come up with one.
We're going back in time with this next story. Yes, thank you for the time machine effect. When you purchase something at Walmart.com, you will now have the ability to pay with cash.
No,
Online.
Online. Well, they're going to scan the bills and then you have to tear them up. How's that work?
The way this works is that you buy it online and then you choose pay with cash. And then you go to Walmart.com, you go to one near you, you bring the receipt, they scan the receipt, and you pay with cash. And then they mail it to you.
So you don't actually get the
just
object
pick
that
it
day,
up.
right?
Yeah, that is.
It's a giant Walmart. I mean, they got everything there.
Let's make the world even more complicated. Well, let's just say they have something that's not in your giant Walmart.
Okay. Well,
And it's
what
only-
might that be that I'd want to buy from Walmart?
Well, it allows anyone with a computer connection to become an online shopper. So you're automatically part of a potential customer base for Walmart, whether you have credit or not.
Well, and I think this has been a huge inhibitor for Walmart. They say only 15% of their
Oh, that's what the
transactions
deal is.
are credit card.
That's because what they're saying is that the Walmart people are white trash that don't have credit cards. It's kind of insulting.
Well, I don't think that was in the press release.
Well,
I think they were
I think
positioning
that's
you could send gifts easier.
I think they got all of
Yes,
the.
you said this on Tech News Today earlier this week. It shows that Walmart really knows their customer base.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like if it gets them money,
Go bring in some cash into the store.
I'm telling you.
Well, it also shows you the state of the economy as well. If Walmart is the biggest retailer in the United States and they are adopting something like this, that it shows you the state of not just the Walmart shopper, but the shopper in general. And I think this is an incredibly smart move on their part.
It's so interesting that they're just reinventing the model, though, to just say, and I mean, Walmart is the hub for a lot of places that don't have access to.
Oh, you mean
the kind
places
of
that have been
storefronts.
driven out of business, little towns that have been ruined by giant Walmarts just being placed outside and decimating the small, medium-sized business that was within the
raise your
city.
hand if you're listening right now at Reply Us. If you're listening right now and you live in one of these places, I've lived in one of these places, and I bet a lot of TWiT listeners live in these places where you are not in control of the economy of Main Street, but Walmart moves into town and you become effectively a company town. I'm not saying this is necessarily good or bad, but I'm saying that this move by Walmart reflects the state of our nation and the state of the people who are not just in Walmart's audience, but in the Tech News Today audience.
I've never been so happy for a Walmart in my life when I was in Murfreesboro, Arkansas. And, Eileen was with me. That's right.
Why?
I was there with you. I remember that now.
What'd you need?
And we were in a dry county. And we had to drive 17 miles to Walmart.
You guys are that hard up for a drink?
Walmart, it's guns and booze.
We
that's
were
what
a
happens.
long way from home.
Because Walmart has everything, you're going in to pay for something you bought for somebody else or for yourself. You're going to go into the store, you're going to wander around, you're going to end up buying other stuff. That's the other thing. Like if you have a wad of cash in your pocket, you're like, oh, well, I'm only here to spend the $58 I spent on this particular DVD player or something. You're like, huh, they do have booze over there. I'm going to go get that too. And while I'm here, I'll get a gun because they do have guns. And if you want some clothes,
Get a gun
you
and
got
want
clothes.
to pay for anything.
Well, you'll buy other stuff, and that's going to get Walmart more and more money, and that's their job, right?
It's just, I just think it's a cool convention just to completely flip the paradigm.
Well, if you want to think business, it takes business by, like, Walmart can afford to do this. I'm sure a percentage of their audience is going to default on this or not be able to follow through. And it shows also that a company like Walmart is saying, well, we can save enough money in credit card processing fees to acquire this marginal, this fractional audience, but we're still willing to do it. That's the business host.
So did you bring this topic up, which seems to be obtuse, because you're long Walmart? Is that the deal? Or you're thinking of going, you buying some options maybe?
It's definitely in my
Some
portfolio.
calls?
Thanks, Charles Schwab. I'm going to talk to Chuck.
You should.
Right
You
here.
should definitely talk to Chuck.
All right, what do we want to talk about, people? We have so many exciting things to talk about, I tell you. Why don't we take a break, and then we'll decide if we're going to talk about Klouchebag, girl falls into sinkhole while texting, asteroid mining, Leonard Nimoy, or 30 women in a brawl over a Facebook post.
Oh, that's a good one.
So think about which of those stories
you know
like
which one I'm
best.
picking.
I don't know. All right, Leo, go for it.
Thank you, Becky. More with our great TWiT panel coming up in a bit. But I would be remiss if I did not mention Stamps.com. Nobody wants to go to the post office anymore. I haven't been in ages. Not because I have people, because I got Stamps. Stamps lets me print official U.S. postage from my computer and printer. I have a post office at my desk. I got the Stamps.com USB scale. I just plop the letter or the package down on the scale. The scale tells Stamps software, boom, it prints out the right postage every single time. So, sometimes you ever do this, because you want to make sure you have enough, you put extra stamps on. That's costing you money. And it looks so unprofessional. You got 50 stamps on an envelope. Stamps.com makes all your mailings look more professional. In fact, it is more professional. It works with QuickBooks, for instance. So all your invoices, it'll pull the addresses right out of QuickBooks and send them out. If you're an eBay seller or an Amazon seller, it's so cool. It even does international postage. In fact, it will fill out the forms for you. So you don't need to go to the post office anymore, even for big packages. The mail carrier comes and gets it. You can even schedule a free pickup. It's absolutely free. The post office loves Stamps.com. You will love Stamps.com. Try it right now. I've got a no-risk trial offer worth $110 for you. So you go to Stamps.com. Instead of the $80 offer you see on the front page, I've got $55 of free postage. When you click that microphone, it's in the upper right corner there, that silver mic. Click that and use the offer code TWiT for a $110 bonus offer, including a month of Stamps.com, the USB scale, you pay only shipping and handling, and $55 free postage. Stamps.com is such a great deal. You're going to love this. And I want you to try it right now with this $110 no-risk trial. Stamps.com. Use the offer code TWiT, of course. You could use the offer code Becky, but they wouldn't give you anything. Offer code TWiT. Meanwhile, speaking of getting nothing, it's more Becky Worley and the...
Whoa! Leo just blew up. We blew him up, but he will be coming back. He'll be reassembled from many pieces. He'll be back Wednesday from his Norway trip. I'm Becky Worley, ABC News technology contributor. You can find me on Twitter, bWorley. John C. Dvorak caffeinating madly.
Yes.
How do you do that? It's like the nighttime. Does that doesn't affect you?
I have a cappuccino machine. Well, no, I can actually sleep on coffee. I had a cappuccino machine one of those Pavonis, so you can really make a real cappuccino. And I always like to you have somebody over for dinner, and then you just offer them one of these, especially after dinner. And I said, "You sure you can drink caffeine?" And so you give them a double, and it's like it's hilarious because the next day they're complaining bitterly.
Hilarious.
I didn't get any sleep.
Iyaz Akhtar is here. Thank you for joining us and being the voice of reason.
I guess that's what I'm doing.
And Dan Patterson joining us, my ex-ABC News cohort, and now doing his own thing. Dan, tell us a little bit about what you do.
I quit my job in November to start a podcasting company. And since January, I've been covering the presidential campaign. I covered the United Nations as a member of their Correspondents Association. And the campaign all summer, but I'm literally doing, what Leo did? I am doing that. I work with SumAll and am funded by their team, and we have an office here in studio in Soho. So we are literally 7 days a week. We're making podcasts and audio reports, content.
And working with
Listen
Gina
to that
Smith.
Voice he's got.
He's got a radio voice.
Oh yeah,
he's got a radio voice, man.
That's right.
The space shuttle was flying over your fair city, Dan.
Apparently a couple of times.
Yeah, did you see it?
They flew one, then the other. They flew the Enterprise over after the other one.
That's cool. What was it? Were people standing in the streets pointing?
Yeah, I live in a neighborhood called Brooklyn Heights, which has a promenade that stretches along the East River. And although the space shuttle flew up the Hudson, it did flew around the what do you call it, Statue of Liberty downtown, and then flew up the Hudson. And there was tons of people out. It was a lot of, the best thing about something like that is less about seeing the space shuttle and more about the affirmation of geeky things. Like awesome. Thousands of people really, really care about something as geeky as a space shuttle. That's really affirming.
Leonard Nimoy was welcoming the space shuttle to New York and had a good story. Eileen, do you have that video?
What a great day that was in 1976. We, the cast of Star Trek, were invited to be there in Palmdale, California, when this ship was rolled out for the first time. The hangar doors opened. This wonderful ship came rolling out, and the Air Force band played the theme from Star Trek. It was a great day for America, a great day for us to be connected to that history. We're very grateful. I want to thank the people of the Intrepid. I want to thank NASA for giving us the Enterprise, Gerald Ford for naming it the Enterprise, the Star Trek fans who insisted that it should be named the Enterprise, to the scientists, the engineers who make these wonderful things happen. I say to all of them and to Enterprise, live long and prosper. Thank you.
To your point, Dan, I think, just a great nod to geek culture and spacophiles. Another really important event that happened this week in technology is we had another amazing video of someone walking and texting and falling into a hole.
She made the hole.
This is the most...
Whether she was texting or not, she's going to fall into this hole.
Oh. It looks like
this is Chinese construction. Get used to it, people.
If you're not watching, this poor girl's walking along the sidewalk. It looks perfectly normal, and out of nowhere, while she's texting, a hole just materializes beneath her feet. She falls 20 feet down into the hole. A taxi driver stops, helps her. And in the interview afterwards, in the video here that's on YouTube, he says she wasn't responding, didn't look like she was breathing, but then he shook her a little bit, and she was okay.
Well, that's first aid, I guess. But I mean, even if the person was looking at the ground, it looked like it was a regular sidewalk.
Yeah,
it just fell apart.
There was
underneath.
nothing under it. It was like they pieced it together and said, "Well, why should we put any construction? Let's don't."
Nobody's going to stand over there.
It's unbelievable that this is the kind of thing they get away with.
Well, if anything, she should have had
It's not even a sinkhole. It's not a sinkhole. It's a spot. It's just a bad construction.
What we need is an augmented reality app so that you can look down when you're walking around, and so you can say, "Hey, look, that's a sinkhole." It's not
penetrating.
Yet,
you have to walk around with penetrating radar now.
That's right.
Yes, that's right.
Penetrating radar. That's going to be good, John. I think
that'll save Nokia.
Yeah. Good.
Other really important news in technology. Apparently, in Sacramento, California, very near to us here, there was a lascivious post on a married man's Facebook page.
Okay.
His wife.
A
lascivious post. His wife. It was not made by his wife. It was made by another woman.
Okay.
Apparently, his wife did not take kindly to that post, and so she. Not only was she affronted by Facebook, but she used Facebook to set up a girl fight. And so she and a group of her Facebook friends initiated her Facebook friends.
Yeah, gang.
Came after the woman who made the post with baseball bats.
Okay.
Outside of a bodega, the 7-Eleven type shop in Sacramento. 30 girls, baseball bats, people taken to the hospital, and the woman you just saw there in that picture, she was the owner of the store where the fight took place.
I like to see the women. You had pictures of them.
Did they organize as a Facebook group first, and then events?
Right. Then they had a special tab on their browser.
Yeah, there might have been a G+ circle that they formed first
to keep it private.
I think so, because the privacy settings were a little clearer there. The woman who ran the bodega did say that they looked hot and breathless after the event. I just wanted everyone to know that.
Hot?
Yeah, sweaty.
Oh, okay. That's
sweaty.
Different.
Yeah, no. Classy news. Judge orders woman to go online, retrieve psychic chats. Okay, Iyaz hasn't even heard this story.
No, I haven't.
Randy Glazer, 43-year-old New Yorker, asked for the Rosh Hashanah holiday off. Her boss is confused by what that means and asks her to come in for meetings during the holiday. She doesn't come in. She gets fired 3 days after this all happens, and she sues for wrongful termination.
Yeah.
During discovery, it turns out that she was using her work computer to do psychic chats with an online psychic service.
Okay.
Called Live Person. And in discovery, the judge says, okay, you have to make those all available. And so she has to go online, retrieve all of her chats with the psychic
This
where
is the way
she
discovery
was
works.
kvetching about her boss.
Oh, this is not going to be good.
And they are turned over. Is this like communicating with your priest when you're talking to your psychic? I mean, should
is there
this be,
privilege there?
Should there be privilege, Iyaz?
I don't know. I mean, the obvious joke is the psychic didn't see this coming.
Exactly. Yeah, you beat me to it.
It's like,
by a lot.
You should not be doing this here. Like, that's.
Yes, Discovery's going to wreck us both.
What do you think?
No, of course not.
She should be absolutely forced to do that.
I think most of the ways that you're protected with priests and others, I think is all codified. And I don't believe psychics are listed as one of the...
Yet.
Yeah.
The big psychic lobby.
Someday, maybe. But, so, no.
John, you heard of Klout bombing?
No.
You know Klout, right?
Klout, K-L... that thing?
Yeah. So it tells you...
Oh, your Klout score is 6.
Right. Based on how many followers you have, based on the engagement level you have with your followers.
You check in on Klout.
Crap they've...
I don't see the point of Klout.
Dan, have you seen it? You know the Klout?
Yeah, I know that people get bribed to use the service. I mean, beyond that, I don't have much use for it.
It makes me a little nervous because I don't want people to think that your Klout score has anything to do with, like, let's say you're applying for a job and you say, well, and I use social media and I can bring those skills to the job.
What's your Klout score, lady?
Yeah, like that makes me nervous. Somebody else shouldn't get to quantify that. So
yeah, right. And the fact that, I mean, this is a company that doesn't reveal their methods, claims to quantify something that absolutely we need transparency on, and then when their service stumbles, they send them free Nokia phones and cars. I mean, come on.
What?
Yeah, they did send out Nokia phones.
What?
Yeah, they have perks, right? So Windows, if you have a certain score and people listen to you, they're like, would you disqualified for a free sweatshirt? But
I don't want a sweatshirt. I get plenty
They did
of
have
those.
a Nokia giveaway. I think it was the 800 or it wasn't the 900. But it was one of those Windows phones.
I think it was the 800. Yeah. I mean, it's just nonsense.
800.
And
I mean, the idea, the problem they're trying to solve is great. Like, let's try to quantify some things. But Becky, right? I mean, I will never go into a job interview and have them say, "Well, what's your Klout score?"
Right. And now the other thing that's a little nerve-wracking about Klout is that people can identify what your area of expertise is. Mm-hmm. So Klout bombing is when you go in and start writing areas of expertise for people that has absolutely nothing to do with anything.
So this thing is gameable.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
it's
totally.
Well, then what good is it?
Totally a self-selecting group of people who really, really need to be assured that they have value in this world.
But I mean, the great thing is that some of these Klout bombs are really ingenious.
Okay, well, tell us.
Well, I could go in there and be like, John C. Dvorak is an expert in, I don't know,
cat herding.
Something of that. I was trying to come up with something clean. Thank you so much.
Captain Kipper came up with that one.
Oh, thank you. And now there's a whole new gaming of Klout. It's called your Klouchebag score.
I never heard of this. Is it what douchebag score?
Yeah, pretty much.
Huh.
Yeah.
It says measures how much of an asshat you are on Twitter. That's actually what it says. I'm not making that up.
Oh yeah, I saw this. It's bull crap.
Okay, so let's try the real Dvorak at the real Dvorak.
And by the way, the reason I don't like this. Well, here's what bothers me. It doesn't. If you do a lot of retweeting, which I do, because I believe that one of the things that you do on Twitter is retweet because it's something interesting, and you don't want to just create a no. You want to give a guy credit for the post, and you just retweet it. It's of interest to your listeners or viewers or followers. So how is this bad?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying.
Well, according to that Klouchebag.
Well, you're 45. Who do you think is the biggest? Who is the biggest abuser of Twitter? Who do you guys think?
Well, you mean on panel, or you mean like in general?
On the panel?
Panel.
Try Patterson.
I think he came across as a good guy. I was like
61.
Facepalm
Central. Klouchebag.
Total Klouchebag.
What about what's Michael Arrington's? Twitter handle?
I think it's already douchebag.
Actually, Eileen is checking Leo's.
Well, Leo.
Leo's 60.
Leo's well.
So he and Patterson go together.
How about you, Eileen?
I believe I'm a douchebag. Hold on.
Okay, let's try at Arrington.
Because I think...
I don't think he even does much
I'm a
Twitter.
bit.
I think I might have won because I looked at this earlier.
You're at 61 so far. You're the winner. Dan's the winner.
Dan's
He's got
the winner.
you beat.
Oh. So far. But wait a second.
Try
Let's see
his.
what happens.
No.
55. Oh, wow, it went down. All right. I've been.
What's yours?
I used to be 62. Now I'm at 55.
Arrington's a 58.
Oh, wow. So I'm almost.
Oh, we can beat that.
I think I'm nice. 35.
Yeah, you don't do anything.
I'm only a bit of a prat.
You're partially angry on yours. That's the
This
thing.
is a bogus site. It proves nothing.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I just
Put Scoble in. Somebody suggested that.
Yeah, right.
This is when it gets. What is he? Scobalizer.
Scobalizer, I think.
SCOB.
Now, one of the things it does measure is if you disregard the English
Spelled it
language
wrong.
syntax. So, like, if you go all lowercase,
or do the number 4.
Yeah. I have a habit of doing all lowercase, which I stopped thanks to this.
Oh, who cares?
Oh, Scobalizer's
34.
No, that's
He's
just the
nicer
best
than me?
Becky. That's Becky.
I know, but Scobalizer's the 34.
Oh, okay. Well, let's try Ace Detective.
Yeah.
That's merit. He's got to have a really high number.
No, he's going to get, except he gets all stressed out and sometimes he has typos.
Yep.
So he might,
Going to you again.
Hold on.
He's not even on there.
No,
He's off the scale.
See, I love
All
this
right, that's
stuff.
enough of this.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit.
Yeah, it's
There
good
you
for
go.
5 minutes.
27.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, see, he's the nicest of us all.
Oh,
A lot of English was used. Must be
I
all
would
the-
look at this
I'm
in the
telling
opposite
you.
direction.
He has typos because he's all stressed out trying to make showtime.
I thought he was doing UK English, and that's probably what he's testing against.
Royce.
What's with all these extra U's?
As Poopy Cat says, this is a dumb website.
All right, so I go to Zynga about 3 months ago for some story that I'm doing for Good Morning America. And, they have like a huge cafeteria
What
down.
happened to all that free stuff you used to get? Do you still do any of that?
Oh, you mean all the infomercial stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. I got infomercials aplenty. I didn't bring you any laser hair removal
I was looking for some more.
Snuggies?
No, there's things they soak up stuff with.
Oh, you. That's
ShamWows.
right. Last time I brought you ShamWows. I'm creating a Pavlovian response with Dvorak when you see me. So it's the basement of Tech TV, right? 650 Townsend, basically, is the Zynga headquarters. And when you walk in, they've got all this food, all these coffee bars, and huge bar. Massive bar.
Like a real bar with booze?
Oh, like many taps.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And, I mean, they have all the typical, perks. They've got the yoga studio.
You've
and they've
been
got
to the restaurants in Google.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is Zynga, right?
Right.
The gaming company.
But it was the beer that kind of...
They had Lagunitas IPA and Anchor Steam and maybe Trumer. What do they have?
They had some good stuff. I think it was... I don't know. I think it was Lagunitas because it was like the whole dog theme. Like
Dog, yeah. That's
Lagunitas.
Yeah,
but so there's... I'm just kind of thinking... Is that a good idea?
Yeah.
Startups
totally.
and beer?
Definitely.
People working crazy hours?
Yeah.
Yes.
Boozed up.
Yeah. Having office romances, getting snaked out of IPO, shares.
Yeah.
That's exactly how they probably bought back those shares before the IPO. They're like, have some free beer. And by the way, while you're here, could you sign this? Because I'd like that share back.
Right. I bring this up because there was a story on CNET about this company that they have a whole tap or a big fridge of beer. It only opens up. It's at the company when all of the timesheets for the week are in. So basically, if you've done all your hours and they're submitted, the electronic beer fridge only opens when all the work is done.
Huh. That puts a lot of peer group pressure on the people that are behind in their work.
I know. That's what I'm saying. And I guess my point is, don't we have some beer in our fridge back there?
No, not really.
I know how much you love the beer.
I do?
No. I was going to bring you some nice wine.
Yeah, you didn't, did you?
No, I got you Stella. Because our work here.
Stella Artois.
Done. Yes.
All right, well, we can drink that.
Nice.
Twist offs.
Is it twist? What are you doing?
I'll be taking that with me.
Yeah? Oh, here.
You're going to break your hand with it.
You got this one, right? You know this one?
You're going to do that?
I don't know. You think this dress is
What are you
going to
do? What are you going to...
I'm not really sure where this is going.
This is like very dangerous.
Haven't you seen that trick before?
I have not seen that trick
That's
before.
a great trick.
What?
I have not. Okay, so you've opened a beer bottle with another
She
beer
opened
bottle.
a beer bottle with... This is only Becky could do this, by the way. She opened a beer bottle with another beer bottle.
I think I've seen it online.
Without getting it all over herself.
Yeah.
I know. I'm probably the only one in the studio who can tap a keg, too.
Oh, no, I can tap a keg. In fact, I keep a tap at the
I need to
house.
start taking lessons from you,
Oh,
Becky.
I never.
All right. Anyways, I'll have to demonstrate that and make sure that...
How did you know the top one wasn't going to bust open?
Because you use your knuckle as the leverage point, and so you put one side of the beer cap under the other side, leveraging it off your knuckle, and then if you're really good, and if I wasn't worried about
you could
the
do
dress,
both at
I would
once.
just do one, and it would just come off.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So our work here is done.
Yes, Girl Scouts, they learn all kinds of weird stuff.
Thank you all for enduring this week in tech with not Leo Laporte. John C. Dvorak,
Good
thank
work,
you so
Becky.
much
This
for
was
coming
a
in.
great time.
Aw,
Thank
thank you.
Becky.
Cheers. Thanks, Iyaz. Thank you all for watching, and this marks another This Week in Tech. And Dan,
Cheers.
the can.
Cheers.
The term is another twit.
Another twit is in the can.
Doing the twit. All right. Doing the twit, baby. Doing the twit. All right. Doing the twit.
Half of the stuff up
So
there
your
is like
camera
that.
looks like a drop cam. Is that the right one?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Cam.
Sorry, it's the only in the studio here. How are you guys?
Can I get it?
He's got a beard, too.
Security cam,
I
Dan.
know, it's like security cam. What's going on?
Please.
See you guys. Here's Iyaz.
What's going on?
Oh, you
Iyaz?
haven't?
No, never met John.
No.
Really?
Nice to
Oh, that's
meet you.
crazy.
All right, let me call
That's just
Lance.
insanity.
We're
Really?
on that
That's
desk over
that
there.
is your camera
It's
for
just a
today, Dan?
coincidence.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't do any better. This is the studio, and we're working on like actual.
Make it an iced coffee. Make it and then put some
okay.
ice in it.
Yeah. I mean, this is our radio studio, and we have cameras. This is a crappy little Skype camera, but we have cameras going in up. You can't see them.
I just
Your
made the
audio
turn.
sounds fantastic. It's just
Well,
it's just
that's what
funny
I
because we
hope,
look
Murphy.
like we're sneaking in on you.
It does.
Take
What
a
is
sneak
this?
peek.
Who is that?
This is Dan
That's
Patterson.
Dan Patterson.
Oh, Patterson.
What's up, John?
Hey,
John's
man.
like, what is that?
It's like he's all blown out with the lighting.
Yeah, that might actually help.
Sorry.
He actually looks like what's his name, the comedian that was on the
we were
show with
watching
Cleveland.
another
with that lighting.
Funny
can't remember
video
his name.
of somebody falling into a sinkhole or something.
Someone will walk through the back of the shot and wipe out, and it'll make the show for sure.
Drew
Actually,
Carey.
Drew
Looks
Carey.
like Drew Carey.
Nice.
We're quite comfortable. You guys should come hang.
Where are
Oh,
you?
you got your round table. We got our
Soho.
round table.
New York.
New York.
New York.
Lance and Lance, hold on.
Do you have blinds behind you? Because we can't see your face.
Yeah, let's see.
Sort of witness protection program a little bit.
Yeah, it looks. Oh, it needs to be. Yeah, it totally looks.
Hello.
Hey, Lance.
How's it going?
Good. Can you send us some video?
Well, they didn't trust you at
The
all. did they?
video's not live.
Trust me,
That's
it was
weird.
me. You
yet.
said send in all the muscle you got.
A second. I'm not sure what's going on
That's
there.
good, Dan.
You sound great.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It'll be
You
better.
guys called it, said it had some
Every
problem.
time he's on, I've seen he can't seem to make these things work. Ever since he went to Mashable, he just can't.
That's
No, I know
Dvorak.
why that is. We can discuss that on the show.
Dude, they're making
Lance
fun of
is
you,
a
Lance.
very brave man.
Video.
I know how
So
this all comes
How's this
together.
video thing work?
why am I
They're
not
really
getting
good
this
at
to
text.
go? Skype profile. Oh, look, he's in there. Damn you. Status. Context. Call. Video. Turn video on.
Oh.
There we go.
Hey, there he is.
I'm wearing my Mickey Mouse ears here. I don't know.
like it.
Well, that looks classy.
Thank you.
But you sound
Thank
good.
you. Thank you. Well, that was the whole point because otherwise I don't sound so good.
I like the yellow room and the bit bouncing off the top of your head. The lighting is fantastic.
Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? You got this right here. It's good. I shaved my head just for you, John.
And I like the reflection. Since you apparently refused to spend the extra $10 on non-reflective lenses on your glasses, so we get to see what you're looking at. So if you go to porn, we're going to know.
Yeah, what can you see in these little screens here?
Dvorak,
Yes.
Leo's not here. We had to be nice and ask these people to come join us. So don't scare them away at the onset.
No, he won't be scare away. He's not that easy to scare.
I know. Well,
He's actually a lot more scary than he is scared.
all you ZD alums can handle the abuse, apparently. So